This video is dedicated to all the awakened souls who frequently visit the astral afterlife. Without you, this information would not be available.
What the? Bro, you ain't tripping, bro. There's a grid in the sky, bro. What way, bro? What the?
People are seeing these strange grid lines in the sky. And while some of these lines in a grid-like pattern are clearly chemtrails, others aren't so easily explained away. These sky grids are usually seen in areas of high altitude or in very rural areas. However, they've also appeared in populated areas as well. As it so often goes with inexplicable phenomena, it has been completely ignored by the mainstream media and government. This grid pattern is sometimes seen by those under the influence of psychoactive substances, particularly magic mushrooms, LSD, DMT, and ayahuasca. I don't dismiss these accounts because these substances are able to take people into states of consciousness beyond the typical five-sense level of reality, which is why occultists and shamans use certain plant medicines and potions to experience unseen realms and to gain insight and knowledge. Please note this video is not advocating drug use. There are some drugs in which there is absolutely no insight or knowledge to be gained. These drugs do nothing but open you up to malevolent entities and oftentimes leave your life completely in ruins. According to artist Alex Grey, who's known for creating spiritual and psychedelic paintings, he saw a quote-unquote infinite regress of electric grids emanating from his mind that spanned out into the horizon into space. He saw this grid after taking LSD. This is important because he mentions that the grid is emanating from him, or rather his consciousness, meaning that his consciousness, or rather the collective consciousness of us all, is responsible for keeping this grid in place. Keep this in mind as we will expound on this more later on. It is also relevant to point out that many of the comments on Gray's post also mention that they had seen the grid as well, usually either while meditating or on some psychedelic substance. In fact, seeing the sky grid while on psychedelic drugs is an extremely common occurrence, and you won't have to look hard to find these accounts. Nevertheless, most people write these experiences off as nothing more than drug-induced hallucinations, which is understandable since most people don't understand how these substances can allow you to access unseen realms, which are always there, but we usually aren't able to see. But here's the thing. This strange grid in the sky has been seen by people who are completely sober as well, and not under the influence of anything. In fact, on Reddit alone, there are many accounts of people all over the world seeing this grid, most of whom are completely confused as to what they are seeing. And even stranger still, this phenomenon has been caught on video, making its existence undeniable. So, what is this bizarre grid pattern in the sky? While it's out there in the public consciousness, in card games, movies, and video games, it's never actually been discussed. It's the concept of soul traps, or more specifically in this case, the soul net. The soul net, also known as a frequency fence, is an electromagnetic grid around the Earth which fences off the simulated universe from the real universe. And while some details from various researchers or theories will vary, they all have the same common message and theme. A parasitic extraterrestrial race that has been feeding off the negative emotions of humans has set up an electromagnetic net around the simulated universe, or specifically, planet Earth. This frequency fence is designed to stop souls from leaving the Matrix. This electromagnetic energy matrix is also there to prevent humans from accessing higher levels of consciousness and disconnecting us from the real universe. This grid is not to be confused with the natural energetic grid of ley lines of planet Earth. We're going to explore some of these theories, and I'll let you come to your own conclusions. The alien interview theory. In July of 1947, during the Roswell UFO crash, a 40-inch ET was the lone survivor. This ET, known as Errol, began telepathically communicating with one of the nurses on base, Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. McElroy secretly kept a copy of the official interview transcripts of these highly classified communications up until she was in her 80s and about to die, before she revealed them to the world. She also included her own personal notes and original letters regarding the situation. These documents and revelations were released in the 2008 Roswell Alien Interview Revisited. In these transcripts, Errol telepathically explained that humans have had our memories wiped and have forgotten what we really are, which she describes as ISBs. Errol communicated the following: "Personally, it is my conviction that all sentient beings are immortal spiritual beings. This includes human beings. For the sake of accuracy and simplicity, I will use a made-up word, ISB. Because the primary nature of an immortal spiritual being is that they live in a timeless state of is, and the only reason for their existence is that they decide to be. No matter how lowly their station in society, every ISB deserves the same respect and treatment that I myself would like to receive from others. Each person on Earth continues to be an ISB whether they are aware of that fact or not." According to Errol, Earth has been used as a prison planet for a long time, and ISBs are brainwashed to use an extreme electronic force in order to maintain Earth's population in a state of perpetual amnesia. When the body dies, the ISB departs from the body. The ISB is then detected by the force screen and captured and ordered by hypnotic command to return to the light, aka the tunnel of light. Errol describes this force screen, or frequency fence, in the following quote: "A wide area of space is monitored by an electronic force field which controls all of the ISBs in this end of the galaxy, including Earth. The electronic force screen is designed to detect ISBs and prevent them from leaving the area. If any ISB attempts to penetrate the force screen, it captures them in a kind of electronic net. The result is that the captured ISB is subjected to a very severe brainwashing treatment, which erases the memory of the ISB. This process uses a tremendous electrical shock, just like Earth psychiatrists use electric shock therapy to erase the memory and personality of a patient and to make them more cooperative. On Earth, this therapy only uses a few hundred volts of electricity. However, the electrical voltage used against ISBs is on the order of the magnitude of billions of volts. This tremendous shock completely wipes out all of the memory of the ISB. The memory erasure is not just for one life or one body. It wipes out all the accumulated experiences of a nearly infinite past, as well as the identity of the ISB. The shock is intended to make it impossible for the ISB to remember who they are, where they came from, their knowledge or skills, their memory of the past, and the ability to function as a spiritual entity. They are overwhelmed into becoming a mindless robotic non-entity. In 2014, MIT scientists discovered the existence of this force screen, which they referred to as a Star Trek-like force field that surrounds the Earth. They describe this barrier as protecting astronauts and satellites from, quote, dangerous ultra-relativistic electrons. In physics, a particle is called ultra-relativistic when its speed is very close to the speed of light. This is important because the speed of light are the walls to the simulation. The speed of light is not the fastest speed. It is the fastest speed that matter can travel before leaving this frequency range, or rather frequency prison. Once you go beyond the speed of light, you leave the matrix. So now the question is this so-called force field around the Earth really protecting us, or is it actually protecting the matrix? The research of Peggy Kane. Peggy Kane was a host on public access TV in the 90s. She's also a UFO researcher and former New Ager. She describes this grid as a frequency net around the planet that holds us in.
So, when you talk about spirit people leaving their bodies, being propelled and dumped on their way out, you said they've bumped their heads on the net.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when they try to get out of your body, it's like a Faraday cage. And when Robert Monroe was put into a Faraday cage, he could astral travel, but in the Faraday cage, when he got out of his body, he would hit that, and his astral body could not go through the Faraday cage, which was electrified. And this is what's happened. And what happens is they may project out to a certain point if they're pretty aware, and then they'll hit the barrier.
The channeled information of Barbara Marciniak. While I'm always wary of channeled information in general, as it's impossible to know who the channeler is communicating with, or if they're even channeling at all. However, I found the following information noteworthy. Back in the early 1990s, Barbara Marciniak claimed to have channeled the following information from a collective of extraterrestrials known as the Pleiadians. According to Marciniak, the Pleiadians communicated that something like an electrical fence, frequency fence, was put around the planet, similar to electrical fences we use here on Earth to keep animals contained. Marciniak wrote that the Pleiadians she channeled stated that this frequency fence was put up by reptilians who had rearranged the DNA of humans to limit our field's frequency band so they can feed off of our negative emotions. This frequency fence around the Earth also made it difficult for frequencies of light and frequencies of information to penetrate. The research of Wes Penray. According to the Wes Penray theory, we are spiritual beings that were manipulated into entering these physical and dense vessels that we call human bodies. This trapped us in the limited frequency band known as the third dimension. Once we were locked into this frequency, we got trapped in a hologram created by an extraterrestrial group, most commonly known as the Anunnaki, but which he refers to as the Alien Invader Force, or AIF for short. This hologram consists of everything we can perceive with our five senses and is a low-resolution copy of the spiritual universe, aka the real universe. This holographic copy of the real universe is what we perceive as physical, but is actually the simulated universe or matrix system. And while the simulated universe is extremely convincing to us since we are trapped in a limited frequency band, all it is a virtual reality, or a software program. The real universe is a universe that we cannot experience while living in this holographic copy. Penray states that the only hint of the real universe's existence is what we call dark energy and dark matter, which together consist of about 96% of the universe. The other 4% is a hologram in which we are currently trapped in. The purpose of this simulated universe/hologram is to keep us enslaved and feed in the AIF. Saturn, and in my opinion the Moon as well, is a key to keeping the hologram in place. Saturn transmits distorted sound frequencies, which through advanced technology is how the frequency prison and grid around the planet has been able to exist. These frequencies can be heard on NASA videos. However, because some humans have been raising our consciousness to a level where we partly vibrate outside the limited frequency band we call the third dimension, there are now holes in this frequency fence. Penray states that the grid is no longer a fully intact electromagnetic field because of this, but rather resembles Swiss cheese. These holes in the grid act like portals which take us directly out of the matrix and into the real universe, escaping through the holes in the net. In order to escape through these holes in the grid, we need to first ignore any spirit guides or entities that approach us upon bodily death. Instead, we need to realize that we now have 360-degree vision and look directly upwards where we will see the grid. The grid may look solid or fuzzy depending on our level of clarity outside the body. However, this is not important. While looking up at the grid, look for any holes in it, which Penray says should be apparent almost instantly. Pick one of these holes and concentrate fully on it. Fully concentrate while having the intention of going through it and out into the real universe. This is where focusing is of utmost importance, as you must not get distracted by any fake spirit guides or holographic projections of deceased loved ones who are there to lure us into the false light tunnel. They will try to distract you, which is why daily meditation and looking inward is important. According to Penray, once on the other side of the grid, you will see the universe the way it really looks like. You will probably see something that looks similar to what he describes as a luminous spider's web, where the web consists of highways and trade routes between star systems and galaxies. What we call dark space will now be lit up and occupied. Once in the real universe, you can go wherever you choose, and you can call upon your human soul group, which Penray states is located in Orion. So now the obvious question is, if the AIF is aware of these holes, and they must be, why aren't these holes actively being repaired? Penray answers this by saying that the AIF didn't anticipate humans discovering what these holes in the grid actually were, and where they lead to. And even if they are repairing the holes in the grid, as more humans are waking up and the level of our collective consciousness rises, these holes will remain intact, or new holes will form. In addition, they know that people are going to do what's most familiar to them, and that is following a fake spirit guide or deceased loved one into the tunnel of light and getting recycled again. He compares this to a bird that has been caged all its life, but will stay in the cage, even when the door of the cage has now been opened. Step 1. Know what you really are. When you take away this dense vessel we call the human body, what we are left with is pure awareness. We are simply a state of being aware. This state of awareness is a powerful creator God that originated directly from Source, the source of all creation, the real universe. We are all individual expressions of that divine consciousness. These entities work hard to make you forget how powerful you really are. Just look at everything they have to do to deceive you into thinking that you have no power. They do this because they know once humanity wakes up, it's game over for them. Declare your sovereignty. These entities use soul contracts to trap us. However, these contracts are almost always made deceptively, so oftentimes the person isn't even aware that they have a soul contract. Therefore, you must declare all soul contracts null and void. It is important to set the intention daily that no one can interfere with you upon bodily death. Make it very clear that you are sovereign. Try to assert this every day. Write, "I am a sovereign being," or whatever mantra that asserts your sovereignty that resonates with you the most. Write this down over and over again so it seeps deep into your subconscious. Another way for it to enter your subconscious is to tell yourself that you are sovereign first thing upon waking up, or while you are falling asleep. This is when you are most suggestible. Visualize an impenetrable force field that surrounds you. Remember, your imagination is your power. No gods, no masters. It's extremely important to realize that no one is above you. No gods, no ascended masters, no spirit guides. You are the powerful creator God. This is a controversial step because it involves abandoning religions that have been instilled into many of us since birth. This is not to say that there are not crumbs of truth in each religion. but since most religions involve giving your power away to a higher being, or promote the idea of karma and needing to reincarnate until you quote-unquote get it right, they must be left behind. It also involves leaving the New Age idea of spirit guides behind as well for those who don't follow mainstream organized religion. Do not give your power away to anyone or anything. Develop a strong out-of-body awareness. It is absolutely necessary to develop a strong out-of-body awareness. You must familiarize yourself with the dreamlike state of the astral realms to avoid being manipulated. To do this, it is necessary to practice one of the following: astral projection, lucid dreaming, or deep meditation. And this is so upon bodily death, you are fully aware of what is happening. Keep a dream journal and learn how to control your dreams. Upon waking, immediately write down your dreams before you forget them, even if you only remember fragments. Learn how to astral project. Going into the astral realm and familiarizing yourself with it will allow you to see how easy it is for these entities to appear as beings of light. Visualize yourself being in other places in detail. Visualize yourself flying. Nurture your imagination. Most importantly, these practices will enable you to remain lucid at the time of bodily death. Which leads us to the next step. Conquer your fear. Fear is a common control tactic of the Matrix. It's how the system controls us. People give their power away because of fear, with fear of death being the biggest source of that fear. Remember, there is no death. The body has an expiration, but your soul has eternity. Please note this video does not advocate or support suicide in any way. I want to make that very clear. If you are struggling with these feelings, please reach out for help. Now back to the video. It's also important to remember when in the astral, you might see things that may frighten you, which is why it's crucial to conquer that fear. Please don't let this information stop you from trying to astral project. Most experiences are beautiful and amazing. However, if you come into contact with an entity that tries to intimidate or scare you, you must show true courage. You need to realize you are more powerful than these energy vampires. Be brave and stand up to them. The only power they have is the power you give them in the form of fear. Remember, fear is a choice. Which leads us to the next step. Raise your vibration. Please note I will be using the words vibration and frequency interchangeably. Your natural state of being is that of pure love and happiness. If your vibration is too low, then you may find it difficult to navigate the lower astral realms. Remember, astral parasites feed off of your louche energy. There are many ways to raise your vibration. Here are some suggestions. Practice Qigong. Qigong helps circulate energy throughout your body and naturally raises your frequency. Meditate and practice mindfulness. You'll find you feel much more peaceful and full of joy. Laugh. Even if it feels forced at first, just start laughing. Spend time with your animal friends, especially cats. Cats naturally repel negative entities. Cats are also masters at astral projecting. Taking care of a cat will be mutually beneficial for the both of you. Not a big cat person? No worries. All domesticated furry friends will fill you with love and joy and lower stress levels. But please respect the sovereignty of wild animals that aren't used to being around humans, and always think about what is best for our animal friends. Limit your screen time. Humans weren't meant to be staring at a screen all day. Reduce the amount of time you spend watching TV or playing on your phone. You'll find that you'll be much happier overall. These are just some suggestions, but there are so many ways to raise your vibration. If you guys are interested in a video on how to raise your vibration, let me know in the comments. Prepare for the love bomb. Upon leaving the body, the soul will feel pure unconditional love and euphoria. The reason for this is unknown, however, it may be because the heart chakra is fully open at the time of death, or because this is our natural state of being. Another theory is this feeling is artificially induced by the archons. Whatever the reason, in this state of pure bliss and love, the soul is easily manipulated. These parasitic entities take advantage of this feeling by luring you into their trap. Keep a level head, stay practical and logical, stand strong in your convictions, and immediately turn away from the entity in the false light tunnel. Remember, these beings have one goal, and one goal only: to get you into the tunnel of light. They will use every trick they have to get you to do so. Use your innate power as a creator being to teleport yourself out of there, or force yourself back down to earth. If you find yourself being pulled towards the tunnel of light, do not move at all. Which brings us to our last step: intention. Without the intention of not going into the light, none of this is possible. You must fully intend to be sovereign. You must fully intend not to reincarnate. You must fully intend not to follow any entities into the tunnel of light. So set the intention right now that you will not be reincarnating and you will be the free soul that you were always meant to be. This seems self-evident, but it still needs to be said. Troubleshooting and frequently asked questions. In this section, I'm going to go over some frequently asked questions I've seen asked and any other issues or soul traps you may encounter. This information comes from researchers Robert Monroe, Wes Penray, and first-hand accounts of those who have astrally traveled to the astral afterlife. I will also be linking relevant reading materials in the description below. Can you go into more detail on what happens after you enter the false light tunnel, aka the tunnel of light? Once you enter the false light tunnel, you are in what is known as the astral afterlife. Upon entering the astral afterlife, you immediately go to a facility known as a processing center to be registered. From there, you are judged by a council, sometimes known as the Lords of Karma. This council is usually made up of human sellouts who serve the archons. Please note that bodily death is different from near-death experiences. Since near-death experiences are propaganda for these entities in the false light tunnel, a softer approach is taken because they know the person will be going back. In these instances, guilt is a primary tool of manipulation. However, upon actual bodily death, the judgment is much more direct and the deceased human is openly judged by the council. The deceased human is still manipulated through guilt and lies about karma and karmic debt. However, they are much more forceful as they know the deceased human is not leaving. Once you are judged, you are allowed to roam the astral afterlife for a while before you are subjected to a brutal memory wipe and forced reincarnation. The astral afterlife has modern cities and towns just like we do here in this dimension, except it's far worse. The astral afterlife is a free-range slave farm and all deceased humans are subjected to brutal martial law. An astral traveler who ended up in a modern-looking city called John DeLocke relayed the following experience. Please note this person was astral projecting and fully alive. However, those around him were deceased humans in the processing center. While in the processing center, he heard a bell ring loudly. A deceased woman started singing loudly, "Satan is coming, Satan is coming." He could tell the woman was terrified and doing this to warn others. All the deceased humans immediately dropped to their knees with their faces submissively facing the ground. A recently deceased young man who was next to him was new to the processing center and the astral afterlife. The young man just stood there looking scared and confused, having no idea what was going on. A group of reptilians then walked in, and it became clear the deceased humans were obsequiously bowing to them. This experience is similar to an incident that researcher and pioneer in astral travel Robert Monroe had. Robert Monroe also described being in a modern-looking city during one of his travels in the astral realm. By his descriptions of the city, it is believed he was also in Joondalup. He recounted the following horrifying experience. While in the city, he heard loud trumpets start playing, and immediately everyone around him lay face down on the ground with their shirts pulled up, exposing their torsos. A group of reptilians then entered the area. He was describing the astral afterlife. In both accounts, reptilians had entered the area, and humans submissively bowed to them. The Soulnet, aka frequency fence. According to the Wes Penry papers, there is a soulnet or frequency fence that keeps souls from leaving the Matrix. This grid around the planet is designed to keep souls who don't go into the tunnel of light from leaving. Certain awakened individuals have been able to put holes in the frequency fence, making it possible to escape through these holes. However, these holes are constantly being repaired, so finding them can be tricky. I can do a whole video on the soulnet theory if you guys are interested, just let me know in the comments. So, if I don't go into the tunnel of light, where do I end up? You have different options. You can force yourself back down to Earth and stay as a free-range ghost. However, you will still be in the simulated universe/matrix system. As a free-range ghost, you can stay on Earth if you choose, or you can look for the holes in the frequency fence, aka Soulnet, and escape through one of these holes. Wes Penry postulated that escaping through one of these holes leads to the real universe, where we are all originally from. The Mist and the Stairway to Heaven. This is another soul trap. Those who experience traumatic deaths, or those who have no out-of-body awareness, end up, quote-unquote, waking up on a stone slab in a foggy area known as the Mist. These souls are lost and confused to where they are. They wander around aimlessly and eventually see a stairway. This stairway leads to the astral afterlife, just like the tunnel of light leads to the astral afterlife. They are just two different ways souls end up there. Please note, not all of those with no out-of-body awareness end up in the mist. Sometimes they may just wake up from being unconscious and see the tunnel of light right in front of them. It is unknown why some deceased humans end up in the mist while others don't. The Void. You may find yourself in a place of complete darkness. Don't be afraid. You are in the void. The void is a place of only awareness. It can be a beautiful, peaceful experience, or it can be a hellish one. It all depends on you. Remember, you are a powerful creator being, so you create what is around you. Here, your surroundings are simply a reflection of you and your beliefs. However, if you see a pin of light that is approaching you in the distance, turn away. This is the tunnel of light. I died and saw and experienced nothingness. There are some people who have died and been revived, only to say that there was nothing. They had no awareness. They didn't even know that they had died until they were revived. Death was like being unconscious. This is not to be confused with the void where there is just darkness, but the person is still aware. The people who experience this quote-unquote lights out scenario have not had their silver cords detached at the time of death. The silver cord is what connects the soul to the body. If the silver cord is still attached to the body at the time of death, the person will still be unconscious until they wake up on a stone slab in the mist. This occurs when people have no awareness outside the body. This is why it's extremely important to learn astral projection or lucid dreaming. All of the steps that I've outlined are important, but in my opinion, the two most important steps are developing a strong out-of-body awareness and intention. This is because even people with knowledge of the tunnel of light can be unconscious after bodily death if they have no out-of-body awareness. When they wake up from being unconscious, they may see the tunnel of light right in front of them, but by then it will be too late and they will get sucked in. This information is not to scare anyone, but rather to stress the importance of developing a strong awareness outside the body. Why do some people remember their past lives? According to Professor Ian Stevenson, a few people, mostly young children, remember their past lives. These children usually end up forgetting these past lives as they grow older, usually completely forgetting everything around the time they turn 10 years old, oftentimes even younger. From what I've found, when this happens, it's usually because a memory wipe didn't fully wipe their memories. There are also a few adults who can recall their past lives as well, however, this is rare. For the adults who still remember, this is usually because in their most recent past life, they negotiated with the lords of karma or some false light being to allow them to remember in their next life. However, the person only remembers bits and pieces of their past life, or the past life comes to them only in their dreams. The Forever Conscious Research channel covers such accounts on his channel, which I will link below in the description. What about the Law of Three? The Law of Three is a spiritual, quote-unquote, law promoted by the New Age community that states if you ask a higher being the same question 3 times, then they must answer truthfully. However, this law makes the assumption that the entity you are communicating with is a higher being to begin with, when in reality there is no way of knowing. As previously mentioned, it's very easy for entities to masquerade as beings of light. In fact, many higher beings do not exist in the astral realms as their frequency is too high, and therefore the chances that you're communicating with a higher being is quite slim. There is nothing stopping the entity from lying. Isn't this just achieving enlightenment through samadhi, i.e., going beyond the cycle of life and death? In a way, yes. However, there is no particular path that one must follow in order to achieve this. You only need to realize what you truly are, which is infinite consciousness, and that your natural state of being is enlightenment. Once you recognize this and have knowledge of these soul traps, will you be able to avoid them? Ignorance of these soul traps is what keeps humans in the reincarnation cycle. It doesn't matter how well you lived your life, you could have been a literal monk. However, if you enter the tunnel of light or any of these other soul traps, you will be forced to reincarnate. This is because the reincarnation cycle is a scam and its only purpose is to keep humans enslaved and feeding parasitic entities. You aren't meant to escape. The game is rigged. Therefore, you don't escape by playing the game. Only when you realize this will you be able to escape the reincarnation cycle. This isn't to say that you shouldn't lead a kind life. You should strive to be the best version of yourself as possible. Be of service to others, be compassionate, and give love freely. However, remember that people continue to reincarnate because of ignorance of the true nature of the tunnel of light and reincarnation, not because they didn't live their life a certain way or because they didn't reach what certain teachings consider enlightenment. Also remember, humans are flawed and we all make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect or lead a quote-unquote perfect life to exit the reincarnation cycle. You only need knowledge of what you truly are and what reincarnation really is. The truth may not always be what you want to hear, but it will always set you free. Well, that's all for this video. I hope you guys found it helpful. Remember to assert your sovereignty, use discernment, and always seek the truth, no matter where it leads.